everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Impress Your Boss with Scriptless Automation Superpowers. We really appreciate you joining us today. My name is Carla Black, and I am the Marketing Manager at Kobiton. Today, I'm joined by Kobiton CTO, Frank Moyer. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the presentation, so feel free to ask your questions throughout using the questions section on your control panel. And just so everyone is aware, the webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available early next week to all registrants. With that, I will hand it over to Frank.
Thank you very much, Carla. And thank you everyone for attending today. I'm going to discuss with you how to impress your boss with testing superpowers using scriptless automation. So a little bit about myself. I've been with Kobiton for 2 years now. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and responsible for overall product direction. Historically, Kobiton, for those of you who don't know Kobiton, we have provided a device lab management software which allows mobile testers to remotely access mobile devices, both through automation and through a browser interface for manual testing. So I want to break this down, impressing your boss with testing superpowers using scriptless automation and what that means. So the first thing I'm going to go through is actually testing superpowers. What are they and how do you get them? And then the second part is how specifically you can impress your boss with these superpowers. So, what are tester superpowers? Well, we all know the superheroes of Marvel. These are pictures of my Marvel comic books that I have had since I was a kid. And you'll see on some of these like 35 cents for the Spider-Woman, 15 cents for the Incredible Hulk. This was from the mid-70s, and these still live in my basement. And my favorite is Human Torch. I always wanted to be Human Torch when I was a kid, and I used to mix dirt and gasoline with my mother's oven mitt and light it on fire and throw it at like trees and stuff. Little did I know as an 8-year-old what that was doing. But all of these superheroes have special powers. They have superpowers, and that enables them to perform acts that other mortals cannot perform. As we look at this and evaluate, if you were a tester superhero, what would those superpowers be? And I think of, if I were trying to be the most powerful tester, what I would be looking to do is really two main superpowers. One is warp speed tests, being able to test 20 times the test cases that a mortal peer would test, right? How can I just be the Flash of, and I know that's not Marvel, but the Flash of testers, and really test a lot really fast. And the second is to have bug vision, right? To be able to see bugs that normally would sneak by a mortal. And these are things like performance issues that may go unnoticed because you're testing the functionality and you don't know things slowed down by a few seconds. But also just being able to visually inspect a page and be able to see, oh wow, that button is off by 20 pixels from where it was last release. When we look at why do testers need these superpowers, especially in mobile, we look at some of the challenges that face our Marvel superheroes and the villains that attack them. And when we look at a mobile tester, they've got to find and attack all of the bugs and defects that are out there. So the mobile testers really need these superpowers. And listen, every tester's job is hard. Testers have usually they're at the tail end of the development process. Delays occur within development, and testers are put on the spot to test as much as possible in as short as time as possible. And there are just, never enough resources. But mobile testing has a unique complexity that doesn't exist as much in that does not exist in browser testing. In browser testing, you have 3 to 6 browsers and 10 versions. You're looking at orders of like 30 to 60 tests tops. That's if you're testing, a lot of the combinations to get 99% of the market. When you look at mobile, the level of complexity is an order of magnitude greater, because you're not dealing with just 3 to 5 different versions. You're dealing with thousands of device types and 10 plus versions of each of those device types. Plus, you've got the additional factors of the device is moving. There are limitations on what processing capability that device has, CPU and memory. And while browsers can have crashes, browser apps, it's more common, and we've all seen it, for mobile apps to have crashes. So these are unique to mobile, and really challenge the mobile tester, requiring them to have superpowers to keep up with their browser testing colleagues. So, when we look at just if you were a mortal mobile tester, this is what you're up against. The median app store rating, right? So if you look at the app store and you take the median across all mobile apps, is 2.6. Now, I know you typically go to the app store and you see 4s and 5s. That's just because that's how Apple and Google have sorted what you see and curated what you see. But in reality, there are a lot of apps out there that never get in front of users or app store users, just because their app store rating is so low. The main issues and the reasons that apps get low ratings are crashes and poor performance. Nothing is more frustrating than when you're trying to get something done and the app crashes. When the tolerance for a mobile user from a performance perspective is that they get a response within 2 seconds, beyond 2 seconds, and there's a lot of frustration. And the top reason for crashes, 73% of the crashes in the App Store, are because the app was not tested on the specific device type that caused that crash. So where does that lead? We have one customer who has over 1,500 devices that they test against to prevent this. They have 100 testers manually around the clock testing their mobile applications. It's a mobile-first organization to test against all these device types because it is such an important part of their brand. So I would like to introduce to you intelligent test automation. And this provides the ability for a manual tester to run a manual test on one device type. And then intelligent test automation will perform those same test steps on dozens of other device types. It automatically detects crashes and will notify you when there are crashes in the app across all those different device types. We are introducing verified rendered text to make sure that that text is consistent both in the content, but also in the structure of how it's rendered. So if it wraps differently, we'll be able to tell you about that. And we'll provide you an annotation interface that will allow you to give flexibility to how it gets rendered. We also, as we go into Q3, will be introducing more robust UI assertions where we can detect inconsistencies of the UI across platforms. And then when we go into Q4, we will be introducing the ability to test performance and have regressions of your mobile application across different device types to see how it performs over time and if there was anything unknowingly introduced into your mobile app. I would like to present to you a brief demo of intelligent test automation so that you can see it in action. For those of you who have never seen Kobiton before, this is our interface. We've got hundreds of mobile devices. These are real devices that I can launch any of these through this, tapping on this right here. So I'm going to launch a Galaxy Note 8 and perform a pretty simple manual test. Now, as this device is launching, I'll tell you about, these are some of the restrictions that are currently on ITA. It's currently only for native mobile apps. In the second quarter, we'll be rolling out the ability to support web applications on the mobile device and some other features for navigation. In this flow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the REI app, which is the app that I'm testing. And I'm going to purchase a pair of boots, men's boots. And I'm going to show you how ITA runs across other device types automatically. Now, I've already run this test before, and instead of waiting for this test to run across the different device types, I'm going to bring you to some of those what we call revisit sessions that show the device running. So here we have the REI app launched. I am not going to log in. I'm just going to go directly to trying to find my pair of boots that I really need. Now, one of the unique capabilities of ITA, one of the challenges we solve is this pop-up is a operating system pop-up, a system pop-up, and I'm going to tap allow. But one of the challenges with mobile is this isn't part of the application. This is called a location entitlement, and it appears different on different versions, operating system versions, and different between iOS and Android. So it might say allow REI co-app to access this device's location, deny allow, but on a different version of Android, it might say will you allow REI co-op to access location, and it will say yes, no. So what ITA does is it intelligently maps my action across those different device types, something that is very difficult to do with just normal scripting. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to shop products, and I'm going to choose footwear, and I'll choose men's footwear. It's loading up, and then I'm going to search for, I'm going to search for the Carson I think it's a Carson Chelsea. So you'll see that when I go in, I think there's a bug in this. So so I can search on the Chelsea boot, and this is the one that I want to use. So I'm going to pull that in. I'm going to keep this color, and I'm going to choose the size of 8.5. And then I'm going to add it to the cart. Once it's added to the cart, I'm going to tap on the exit button to exit out of this manual session, because what I wanted to just show was a quick, you can see it in the cart right there. I'm going to exit the session, and when I exit the session, it is going to provide me with a set of devices that I want to rerun this against. And we've created three different bundles. One is the top 5 globally, the second is the top 10 globally, and the third is the top 20 globally. So it recommends the top 10 globally, and we have all of these devices. Now you can go and choose which ones you don't want to run against. Actually, I think I'm going to run this one against, like I did in the original session, the top 20. So I would kick that off, and then after that, ITA is going to go off asynchronously and run those sessions across all those devices. Everything I just did is going to be run against all those devices. You will get an email notification once it finishes, and you will be brought to, when you get that email, you'll be brought to the execution list screen, which has all of the executions that were performed based on your kickoff of the revisits. And you can see a few different things going on here, and I want to explain this a little bit. You'll see that we have a total of 8 passed, 5 failed, and 5 blocked. So just to show you what a passed session looks like, you get the robust information from the Kobiton platform about everything that was the metadata about the device, the operating system, the model name, the resolution of the device, and then you'll get all of the commands that were executed. So you can see all of these actions that were performed. You can see that we're tapping on the shop products. You can download all of these. You can see that we're going into men's footwear. And ITA handles all of the scroll and swipe interactions as well. And if, in this case, one of the challenges is we chose a specific shoe, a boot, and ITA's machine learning was able to identify that specific boot, even if it were on 5 pages down instead of, during my manual test, 1 page down, even if it's on the right-hand side of the list versus the left-hand side. So our machine learning, our image processing is able to detect that. And we also have full video of my test, so you can see what all happened during the revisit, which are the same steps that I ran during my manual test. And you also get full access to the logs on the device. So that shows you an example of the manual tests that were successful, or the revisit tests that were successful. And going back, there are also a set of failed tests. So you've got 5 that failed, and I can see pretty easily why these failed. We have a time limit of 24 hours. If the device was not available to rerun in those 24 hours, it will fail. And you can see that, you know, these are running right over 24 hours, 24 hours, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. So that is the main cause of those, and you can rerun those automatically, and we're adding some capability to extend that timeline so that it would, and make more devices available so that you can increase the success rate. Now, our machine learning is really good, but it's not perfect. And we designed this around our machine learning not being perfect. So what we do is we have the ability to remediate when what we call a blocker. So we cannot find an element. In this case, one of the ones that I'm going to go to is an example of where the machine learning couldn't find it because there was looks like a UI design issue. Now, when we get into third quarter, we'll be able to show not just that there was an issue, but also what caused the issue. In this case, we are the manual session, the user on the Galaxy Note 8, tap on login. Down here, you'll see that the login is hidden behind the no thanks. So that's why our machine learning couldn't find it. So all you have to do, and you can see additional metadata about what we call the manual session and the revisit session. So all you have to do is, you'll see the yellow square there highlighted. Tap on that and then tap submit. That will tell the process that this is the element that you should use from now on. And we will memorize that for this application from now on this device type. That test will be rerun, and then you'll be notified that it completed when we go back to the executions list. So that's one type of blocker. The other type of blocker occurs when you're swiping or scrolling down multiple pages. You can imagine, well, what if my blocker, what if the element it couldn't find isn't on the first page, but it's further down? And here you can see I chose the Carson Chelsea rain boots. And what happens on this side is I couldn't find it because, let's see, it looks like it cut off at the bottom, like right below the fold here, and that's why our machine learning failed to find it. So all I'm going to do is select this and then submit that, and it'll also be able to rerun. So those are some examples of how we handle both what we can see in the manual session, as well as what happens on the revisit sessions, and when it can't find an element, how do I resolve it? So that concludes the demo of ITA. And so now I ask the question, do I have superpowers yet? And so I've successfully taken a manual test, and I run that test across 20 different device types, all from that single manual test. That manual test was about 3 minutes, and I performed over 45 minutes of tests from that initial 3 minutes of testing. And I've automatically detected crashes without reviewing the logs and the videos. And so, I'm a lot stronger, but do I have all my superpowers yet? Not quite. And I want to talk about the overall flow that a manual tester will be able to achieve through ITA. Currently, a lot is talked about continuous integration and continuous deployment, but the continuous testing, the CT of the CI/CD CT, is often not used. And as a manual tester, you will be able to achieve continuous testing. And I'm going to explain how you do that. So the first is you go through that process of running a manual test and remediating any of those navigation blockers that we just went through. So you're training the machine learning to automatically navigate through your application and then rerunning until it goes to completion. At that point, you have a repeatable ITA automation setup. So you can call that session from an API and rerun that multiple times every night. So you have now created your automation script by just remediating those blockers. And now we rerun this through any sort of pipeline, and you can do that through we're setting up the ability to connect Azure DevOps and Jenkins so that you can just manually go in and schedule this, connect it to your GitHub account so that whenever code gets checked in and pushed to master, you can automatically kick off the build and then test using those remediated automation sessions. You have now achieved continuous testing. And then when you identify bugs, you'll be when we find crashes or UI issues, you will go into the remediation screen where you can go and determine whether it's an issue with scripting, whether it's an issue with the new release of the product, or whether it's an issue with the application itself. We do have an integration into JIRA, so directly from both the session list and from the remediation list and the remediation details, you can create a defect and assign it to this. And where that leads to is what we call, your morning checklist. You can review the test execution from the previous night's test run. So the continuous integration process runs, it deploys it, and you kick off your continuous test execution. In the morning when you show up, you can see all of the issues that were raised from the previous night's run, and you can go through those one by one and take the remediating actions. Creating the defects directly within the UI, and being able to adjust your automation based on app changes. So if you have some new text that appears on the screen, you can accept that, and that will be the baseline going forward. One of the biggest challenges we hear from manual testers who are trying to get into automation is just knowing where to start. And with our Appium Anywhere product, you'll be able to take the manual sessions and the results of our machine learning and export an object repository of that script. So you can find elements across all devices, all in Appium. You have no more scripts breaking from device to device. I mentioned crash detection, so I'm going to breeze through this so you can navigate directly to the crash log. We're implementing visual validation across all different device types. It also allows you to annotate issues, and we will learn from your annotations to improve the UI, the UI for your application. The other thing is usually most record and playback tools are one and done. You record it. It does pretty simple coordinate-based playback. We're doing it with machine learning, so it's much more mature. And we also support new versions of the app. So it's no longer one and done. When a new app release comes out, unless it's a major change to the app, you can support new versions of your or create updated versions of your automation with these new app versions. So I've gone through and talked about how you how you can get your superpowers, and the piece that we're going to talk about next is, okay, now how do I impress my boss? How do I take everything that I've done and show my boss, what all that I've done that's so powerful? And to achieve that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a report that you can generate from ITA. So we use a product from Google called Google Data Studio, and it takes all the data from your ITA sessions and generates a very nice graph for you to demonstrate to your, make sure I'm logged in as the right person, to demonstrate to your boss. So here you have stability metrics by device type and stability by operating system and version. You can see all of the remediations that you needed to perform and all of the defects that you created for each device type. You can also see that by operating system and version. You can see that the Galaxy J5 is causing some problems. It looks like you have the most defects on a iPhone 7. And what's interesting about this is you can actually now see whether most of the issues are being caused by the application while your tests are not completing, or because of application issues, or because the application has just been updated and you have to update your automation, which is, again, through ITA. And then you can also see your productivity. So you can show your boss that you did 5 minutes of testing, and you were able to use that 5 minutes of testing to perform all of these tests. So every night you're kicking off these tests automatically, and it's generating reports for you about what was tested on which devices, on which operating systems, how many defects you created, and you're doing that with superpowers provided by ITA. So now you have your testing superpowers. You've delivered 20 hours of tests from 15 minutes of manual testing, and you've automatically identified, using your bug vision, crashes, performance issues, and visual issues with your app. So we are currently taking candidates for our ITA beta program. And we are looking for people who have a native mobile app. We are going to, as I mentioned, support web applications in Q2, a willingness to provide feedback during beta, and you are a manual test team trying to get to automation. If you do qualify and are interested, please go to kobiton.com/intelligent-test-automation, and we can schedule a personalized demo with you. I will now like to hand it back to Carla to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Frank. Like you said, we're now opening the floor up to questions for the next 10 minutes or so. You can ask your questions in the questions panel of your control screen on the side of your screen. We already have a few questions coming in, so I will go ahead and start with our first question. Can I use ITA in my trial of Kobiton?
We do not have it activated on our trial accounts yet. We are intending to do that in the future, but for now, if you would like to use ITA, please go to the kobiton.com/intelligent-test-automation and schedule a demo, and then we can set you up.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, I have a specific set of devices that I would like to run my test on locally. Could I use ITA on my local devices?
Yes, so we've had quite a few requests for that. I was quite pleasantly surprised by these requests that have come in. We are going to support that on our May 18th release.
Great, that sounds great. We're looking forward to that. Our second question is related. Can the device list in which we select the test of where the devices go, can that be configured so that we can pick and choose?
Yes, so we are going to support customized configuration bundles in the second quarter on the June 29th release. We will support the ability for you to create your own configuration bundles for your organization. And then when you run your test, you'll be able to select those configuration bundles.
Great, looking forward to that as well. Our next question is, could we run these tests on tablets as well?
So we currently do not support tablets. It is on the roadmap for this year.
Great, a lot to look forward to. Our next question is, how many users can use a single account across different platforms?
So the way that Kobiton is structured is within the organization, you can have an unlimited number of users. So we don't have any limits or we don't charge based on users. And within the overall organization, we also have the ability to allocate users to different groups. So if you have 4 different apps and you want to have different users testing those different apps, you can have those in different groups. You can also allocate devices to those groups. So if you actually want to segment your devices based on automation versus manual, or also by app, you can do that. But to answer your question, you can have as many users as you want on the Kobiton platform within your organization. One of our customers we have an integrated SSO. They have every single one of their employees, 15,000 employees who have access to Kobiton. Now, not all 15,000 have accessed them, and we probably had a few thousand who have accessed it, but it goes to show you that what you can do with our platform.
Awesome, thank you for that. Our next question is wondering if we do web applications also.
Yeah, so I covered that a little bit, and let me just clarify that. So we have 2 features that are around navigation that we're excited about for the second quarter, and the first is the ability to handle web applications, and that includes apps that might have an embedded web view. So we are enhancing our machine learning to support mobile-based web applications. So if it's running on the mobile device, you can run your tests on the mobile device. And then the other is dynamic content. So I gave an example of dynamic content when I did the demo around the Carson Chelsea boot. That was essentially dynamic content. Now, what if that boot doesn't exist or is no longer in inventory, and I run my test and I can't find it? What do I do then? So we're going to be implementing some really cool features to allow you to continue on with your test, even if that Carson Chelsea boot, for example, was no longer in inventory.
Great, I hope that answers your question. Our next question is, in the demo, what strategies did you use to locate the elements?
So I think you use a specific phrase there, which is strategies, and just to let the audience know, within Appium, there are different ways to select elements. Those elements can be selected by the XPath. They can be selected by a unique identifier. They can be selected by the coordinates. So you can just say, tap on this coordinate. So we are using a variety of mechanisms to determine where to tap on the screen or to swipe on the screen. And so that's all behind the scenes using our machine learning. And then we use the most advantageous selector in order to rapidly execute that test. So we've spent a year building out the machine learning to do this, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes to make that happen. And
awesome.
one more point on that. I'm sorry, one more point on this, Carla. For those also who aren't aware of this, like I mentioned this briefly when I showed that slide of all the mobile devices. Again, all of these devices are rendering their XML, potentially differently. So it may appear as ABC on one device and XYZ on another device. There is no W3C specification for how the manufacturers render the XML. It's the Wild West.
Great, thank you. Our next question wants to know that they were not able to schedule a demo because they couldn't register with a Gmail account. Are there any other ways to register for the beta program?
You know, I think you could, I think if you send an email to info@kobiton.com, I think we can coordinate scheduling a demo.
Great, thank you. Our next question wants to know, how are we managing the global rating for the mobile devices on the list?
Yeah, so we work with a company called Ciencia Mobile, which produces a report called Mover that looks at the global device usage by device type and operating system. So that's what we use to create to curate our list of devices. Now we've gotten a lot of requests from customers who want to customize that list, and that's driven us to build these organization-based configuration bundles. We have the UI, and I'm really excited about it because when you choose a device, you can also see the what market penetration you are going to get by region, by screen resolution, by operating system version. So you get all this rich information when you're selecting your device bundle.
Gotcha. And I think we had a follow-up question. How frequently does the mobile rank or rating changes?
So we update that quarterly.
Great, thank you. Our next question asks if the UI compatibility failures, will they be under the blocked in the test reports?
They will not be under blocked. There will be a, let me bring up my screen and I'll show you what that will look like. So in here, you'll see this, sorry, are you able to see, do you see my screen, the demo, or do you still see the questions?
We see the test case list on the demo.
Okay, great. Okay, so on the right-hand side, you'll see this action, and this is a blocker action. We will be introducing a different icon for the visual verification, and that will appear, you'll see it as failed. You'll be able to navigate to that blocker or to that non-blocker remediation, or you can go ahead and you can annotate the visual issue.
Awesome. Our next question comes, they wanted to know if they are already a Kobiton customer, will ITA be available for me, or will it be an additional cost? Well,
thank you for being a Kobiton customer. We appreciate your working with us. So the current cost structure for ITA is just the additional minutes that it consumes. So there's no additional cost. We will continue to evaluate that as we move forward, especially as we add more of our assertion library. It's more likely that our assertions will be an additional cost, but for now we are adding those as part of our beta program free of charge.
Great. Our next question, I believe that we're almost out of time, so this unfortunately will be our last question. They would like to know more about the integrations. So could we use the reports to integrate with JIRA?
Yes. So we one of the great things about, and I'm going to jump back to that screen real briefly. One of the great things about this platform that we're using, Google Data Studio, is we're going to make the raw data available to you. And so I created this report in about 2 hours. But you can go in, and if I go in and edit this report, I can add different data sets. So I can add data, and you've got all of these other data sets that you can integrate and join to that data. So you've got all these third parties. I think JIRA is one of them. So you can immediately link your JIRA tickets into Kobiton and run some rich reporting off of that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys have any other questions, you can email us at marketing@kobiton.com, and I'll pass the questions on to Frank. Thank you guys for joining us today, and a special thank you to Frank for presenting.
Thank you very much, Carla. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.